Welcome to Psyche Magic, a podcast about self-discovery and the subconscious, where we explore the symbolic language of dreams, tarot, and archetypes. I'm your host, Jordan Hale. I'm a psychotherapist based in Nashville, Tennessee. Each episode, I'll hold a casual conversation with various artists and healers about their shadow work practices. We pull tarot cards, unpack a significant dream or dream theme, and discuss their personal healing arts practices. So please grab a cup of something delicious and stay a while. While aspects of this podcast may feel therapeutic, it is never meant to take the place of therapy. Welcome back to Psyche Magic. Summer is in full swing, and our collective gardens are bursting forth with life and creatures of all kinds. At the time of this airing, I'm drawing nearer and nearer to my own life-giving transformation. My daughter, who will be born any day now. My days have been filled with nesting, a cutesy term that for me looks more like panic buying and meticulously organizing every baby care item under the sun, last-minute house projects, and hoarding homemade food in my new deep freezer. My work as a therapist is officially on pause, and I'd be lying if I said it wasn't emotional and a bit destabilizing to shelve this aspect of my identity that I very much associate with a sense of pride and competency for a while, to replace it with a completely new role and what I imagine to be a humblingly steep learning curve. Surely some bravery will need to be summoned from somewhere. I'm drawing inspiration from the people in my life who are creators and disruptors, those who aren't afraid to forge a new path, to return to beginner's mind, to start over. My guest today, Elizabeth Sue, absolutely fits into this category. She is the author and creator of the Adventure Tarot, a road trip-inspired deck about self-discovery, belonging, and celebrating Asian joy. She earned her master's degree in clinical psychology from Columbia University, where she researched burnout and perfectionism. Prior to that, she was busy hustling for her worth at a Silicon Valley startup. Her work has been featured in, among others, the Los Angeles Times, POPSUGAR, and Bustle, and centers around topics such as self-love, intersectionality, and the multifaceted nature of being human. Our interview delves into her process of deep grief and healing around the formerly denied and abandoned parts of her identity that center around her Asian American heritage within the backdrop of the pandemic and the horrifying uptick in Asian American hate crimes around this time. We incorporate discussion of healing from codependency, reclamation of inner teen healing as it relates to identity formation and experimentation, and oh, so much more. So bear with me through a couple of quick announcements, and then we will get into the interview. In case you missed it, we are now on Substack. You can find the entire archive of the podcast, bonus minisodes, and my weekly personal essays, where I write about nature-based spirituality and sources of creative inspiration, all in one place on this fabulous platform, with both free and paid subscriber options. So if you need even more Psyche magic in your life, be sure to follow along with us there if you haven't already. That link is psychemagic.substack.com. I also recently got to write an article about caring for the local birds as a way of consistently honoring the element of air in your magical practice for a fabulous publication out of the UK called Witchology magazine. You can find it in their summer 2024 issue titled For the Birds, Ritual Practices to Honor the Element of Air. It was so much fun writing this article, and I hope you'll check it out. You can find the issue available for either print or digital purchase at witchologymagazine.com. As always, I just want to thank you so much for being here on this journey, whether it's the first episode you're tuning into or whether you've been here with us since the very beginning. I cannot tell you how much this work means to me, and I'm so grateful that you are here. Now, let's get into my interview with Elizabeth Sue. All right. Elizabeth Sue, welcome to Psyche Magic. I'm so glad you're here today.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yay! We got our technical difficulties out of the way. We got situated. We're cozy. We're ready to dive in, and it's going to be great.
Yes.
Yay! Elizabeth, I would love it if you could just quickly introduce yourself for the listeners. So just tell them a little bit who you are and what you do, please.
Well, I am the author and creator of the Adventure Tarot, a road trip inspired deck for self-discovery and belonging. That's kind of my main jam right now. I have a background in psychology. I studied burnout and perfectionism, and I really like to weave in just like create art and projects out of things that are close to my heart.
Oh, love that. Yes. Can we all please find ways to do more of that in our lives, right? Creating things close to our hearts. Yes. Claiming that for all of us. I am so excited to talk about your deck. We're going to use your deck today in real time. We're going to learn more about just kind of like the story behind it. I'm forever in awe of people who have created tarot decks. Like, to me, that just seems like such an immense undertaking. And I just like, it always blows me away. So I'm very excited. And just flipping through the guidebook today, I was like, this isn't just any guidebook. Like, each of these entries is really from the heart and like very fleshed out and just very wise. And it's just, you've just done an amazing job. It's so lovely. Elizabeth, congratulations.
That means so much. Thank you.
It's fabulous. Okay, now I'm so curious. So obviously we're going to pull a card and get into like the story behind the deck. But I am curious like when this idea kind of came to you and like how long it took to actually come to fruition. I'm just curious about that, selfishly.
So I would say the idea, like the seedling of the idea,
exactly
came to me all the way back in 2017-ish when I was first starting my business. I was like, I had a million ideas of where, coaching and courses and this and that. And I was like, also a tarot deck. And my idea was it was still in the adventure realm. And my business spiritual coach at the time was like, love it, let's table it, because I was trying to do something else. And then it came back around to me 2021 with the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes and just feeling really burned out with the manuscript that I was working on at the time. And I'm sure we'll get into more of the story then, but that's when I was like, you know what? I want to do something fun. I want to create art out of pain, like for me, for others, and we were living on the road at the time. And so it all kind of like melded together into this project.
Absolutely. No, so much like beauty and healing in that calling. Like, what can I create that is exciting and adventurous and loving out of this really difficult moment in time? But those are those moments where you're like, I have to heed the call. Like, this is this is it. Like, this is the moment.
Yeah.
I love hearing that. I love learning about just like what those moments look like and feel like. So thank you for sharing that. I don't know. It helps me feel more connected to the deck and to the project as we're working with it. So I am grabbing the deck now. I'm going to shuffle it and we will pull a card. I love a one card pull for the show. Like, I love just pulling a card and just seeing what shows up and just having a little bit of fun with it. Okay, now because you had a tarot idea so early on, you must have been a tarot participator earlier on in life.
Yeah.
I would love to hear about like how you even came to tarot in general. Like,
what
role has it played for you?
It's interesting. I feel like as most things go on the path, you find yourself in a yoga teacher training. And that's where I was 2013, finding myself
Amazing.
um, and getting just immersed in all these cool new spiritual tools that I really didn't dabble too much in before then. And I just loved how it sparked conversations between people. It like allowed me to think about something maybe a little bit more objectively or compassionately. And yeah, so that was kind of my tarot journey.
I love it so much. I love that you tied it back to a yoga teacher training. Like, yes, that is so the vibe. But it's so fun because it's, you said, like adventurousness, fun, like playfulness. And like tarot has been such a fun way for me to like re-engage with play. I feel like it's playful. Like every time I'm using a deck, I'm like, I'm playing right now. It's so fun.
Yeah, it's like a little, it makes like introspection so much less scary.
Yes.
And it's like every day you pull a new card or you get the same card 8 days in a row and you're like, oh, okay, I'm getting the message.
Why are you stalking me? Please. I know. No, it's so true. It makes it less scary. I think that's an excellent way to put it. I love that in your deck, you talk about this in the guidebook too. You don't emphasize the idea of like reversals necessarily, which I completely agree with. I think that like with every card, these are neither positive nor negative cards. There are blessings and challenges inherent in every card because that's life. So I'm not going to pull a card and be like, "Oh, this is a reversed, like this is a negative version of this card." It's like every card just has positive and negative aspects. You call it releasing. So it's like the essence versus the releasing energy of each card. I think that's so right on. I love that you frame it that way. Okay, in the spirit of this, I'm going to reveal the card that we got. So we got the Three of Swords. Hello. Okay, the Three of Swords. Now, for the listeners, I'll just like quickly describe it. So Elizabeth's deck is also color coded by suit, which like tickles my brain in like the best way. It's so lovely. So the sword suit is purple. So we have a purple card and there's a hand kind of grasping these three swords. And it is sort of evoking that classic Pamela Coleman Smith illustration of like the heart with the three swords and the rain cloud from her very famous deck. So there's like a little, nod to that. So hand grasping, three swords kind of piercing through this hand. There's a little lightning bolt on the purple nail on the hand. And then there's rain clouds in the background. So yes. Okay. Three of Swords. Like, give me your little take on what comes up with this card, and then I'll share mine.
Ouch. It's an ouchie card. It's a tending to the heart card. It's like, ooh, something does not feel good. And yeah, for me, I'm going through a really difficult time with several relationships in my life. And it's been extremely confronting. I think I've been on a journey of healing codependency and I'm noticing, the more I try to take care of my own needs, like that really upsets the people I've, had this dynamic with. And I'm really struggling not to internalize that and make that like, oh, I'm being a bad friend or I'm a bad daughter, because that's what I was taught. And so when I see Three of Swords, I'm like, pretty much like my heart has been pierced in many ways. And I'm really, it's a swords card. So it's a lot of mind activity. I'm having a lot of insomnia right now, just sort of like ruminating about these things. And
yes,
it's a bit heavy.
But also extremely real and potent.
Yeah.
As someone who is also on a codependency healing journey, I will call it, because each chapter and phase just keeps unfolding. And I'm like, oh my God, there's more. There's so much more. This is really deep stuff. But I will just like share this with you, Elizabeth. I have this card tattooed on my body.
No.
Yes, I do. I have a Three of Swords tattoo on my forearm because this is a very important card to me. This is a card that is about the just inherent, hero's journey that we are all on in life. And I think that if we're not experiencing those Three of Swords moments and letting them in, I don't know how deeply we are engaging with our journey. Like, it's just a part of it. And each time that we move through another ouchie moment and heal through another ouchie moment, we are stronger and more powerful.
Yeah.
Like the way that the card is presented is that these swords have this kind of visually, they have this kind of fortifying, like sort of image and stance. There's something about the way that they pierce us that also reinforces us.
I love that.
Yeah. So it's a card that I meditate on often. It's a card that really holds a very special place for me. And yeah, I just appreciate you sharing that, like, just the honesty of like, I'm in it right now. Like, this is a tough moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just real. Yes, you said mind and intellect also. And I think that's also important to remind listeners is that like there are these layers of meaning in the cards. So it's really helpful to sort of paint this particular ouchie moment through the lens of thought and what my mind is doing with this information, right? That may or may not always be the most helpful. Yeah, what stories is my brain coming up with about whatever this moment entails and whatever it feels like? And yeah, are those stories useful? Or do those stories need a little revision at times? Right. Yeah. Speaking for myself there again.
No, I appreciate that so much. I do love that idea that, I don't know, like for myself, because it's been so hard, that like the reminder that, yeah, it is building resilience. And also my mind is such a place. Being a writer, I've been reflecting a lot on this. Like there's a reason I'm a writer, because I need to process things through words and story. And at the same time, that's also like anxiety and overthinking. And it's just, that is also my work and my purpose. So it's confusing and tiring. And yeah, just seeing where there are pockets of relief in that and just sort of letting the healing happen.
Sure. I'm a writer too. And I always say it feels like a blessing and a curse to me. Like to have such a verbose, busy mind.
Yeah.
Like it can be so effective in terms of the way that I need to move through, process my experiences. And it can also just like tangle me up in a huge knot like so easily.
At 3 a.m. And that is apparently the best time to solve problems.
Especially at 3 a.m. I was literally up at 3:30 this morning. I am on a whole journey of pregnancy right now also, Elizabeth. So I'm 27 weeks pregnant right now, and my mind is just running with all of the what ifs, right? My life is about to completely change. And my little, logical mind does not like that at all. She's like, this is terrifying. Like, what do you mean everything's about to change? What are we supposed to do with that? That's awful. So yes, it's like the 3:30. This is like the 3:30 a.m. like now what card? Yeah. Like, right? It's like, yeah, here we are. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I know it is like there's so much to be said. Okay, Three of Swords, we see you. You are here. You are here with us, and that is okay because that's where we are. So we will just, hold the Three of Swords with us through the conversation. All right. So let's get into your dream. You brought a juicy dream for us, Elizabeth. It is juicy because I think it has some themes that are very common. I think that it's going to be a very relatable dream for listeners. So, if you would like to just briefly share the story of your dream, please feel free. And then we'll just kind of, have fun looking through the layers of it together.
Well, I was so glad. I don't always remember, or I don't always have vivid dreams. And it was just like days before I got your email about the dream, like submitting my dream, that I woke up with like a start and wrote it down. And I actually thought it was so lame, which we'll get into, that I went through like several old journals. And usually if I have dreams, it's kind of like I write dream : like at the top. So I don't know that, because it's like the first thing when I wake up, and I couldn't find another one. I was like, okay, I guess this is the dream I'm meant to share.
We're going to roll with it.
So essentially, I'm like back in high school, I think, some sort of school. I'm trying to find my notes. I can't find my notes. I feel very scattered. I found the phone we just bought a condo, of the real estate agent of the sellers, and was trying to find her to give her back her phone, even though I was late to class. And then I get to class or whatever, and one of my old high school friends is just like laughing, scoffing, rolling her eyes, and she's like, Elizabeth, like, where have you been? You're such a mess. Like, you're always like scattered and all over the place.
Yeah. It's interesting because we're in like two different worlds, right? We have a foot in the past. We have a foot in high school, this very like formative time. And then we have a foot in more of the present, like something that happened more recently. And so now I think, first of all, I can't tell you how many dreams that I hear about being back in school. Like that is just one of the most common themes that there is. And to me, that is just so beautiful and perfect, because what is life? What is this journey, if not like a giant lesson, right? Like we are always in school. So it's just such a perfect way to illustrate like, okay, what am I learning right now? Right. So you break out these different kind of pieces of the dream and the experience and the people that you encounter, which is always fun, because I love to look at the characters or the figures in the dream through this sort of Jungian lens of like, how might they represent a part of me and a part of my self, or something that I'm grappling with. And so you mentioned there were a couple of associations with these different figures, right? There was a real estate agent. Remind me what it was that you kind of associated about her.
Oh, it was because I was so concerned about finding her to give her phone. My hunch was it was this theme of like putting other people's needs before my own.
100%. Hello, codependency. Hello.
Hello,
darkness, my old friend.
And nighttime.
That's exactly right. It's just that little validation indication of, yes, this is a lesson for you right now, right? This is a pattern for you right now, is that I'm concerned with this other person and what's going on with her at my own peril, my own detriment.
I'm late.
I've got things to do. And yet I'm trying to help you, right? And yeah, the real estate agent herself, I'm curious too about just kind of like her essence, her vibe. Like, how would you describe her as like a character?
Cold.
Okay.
Unhelpful.
Yeah.
And like selfish.
Yeah. I know. Ouch, right? Like tough. Yeah. Like tough. And so, yes, it can be so useful to think about like, man, okay, are there parts of me that show up in these moments, in these codependency dynamics that have some of this nature, right? Like, if I don't show up in a certain way, like what is that sort of like coldness that I might experience, that rejection that I might experience towards myself? Because if I'm in a pattern of codependency, like that's my job, right? Like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So what does it mean if I'm not? Yeah. Okay, so we had her. We had a high school friend. Tell me about her.
Always needed to like be the best.
Yeah.
Especially academically. And we were like the only like 2 Asian women in the class.
Okay.
So there's I had to think about that as I was reflecting on this dream. And for some reason, everyone loved her and like celebrated her success and then would always try and tear me down.
Wow. Talk about like a sort of shadow, like dichotomous figure, right? In mythology, this would be like the sort of evil twin, like figure, right?
Yeah.
Where there's just this like distinct kind of mirroring that happens of like the light and the dark aspects. Yeah. And just the, again, ouch, like just the pain of that, of like being in that dynamic, because I can imagine that was really confusing and hard.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have like a core group of high school friends that I've since distanced myself from in different ways, the group and then individually. And anyways, this person and I grew apart probably the soonest. And yet she is a frequent of the group. My high school friends come into my dreams all the freaking time, which is very annoying. Because it kind of haunts me because my mind tries to do a thing which is like, you made a terrible mistake. Like, see all the nostalgic things that you're missing out on. But I have noticed that she comes in a lot for not having a closeness in a really long time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which is so, again, this is one framework, right? To be fair, like a lot of people may read this in different ways, but I have come to really believe and read those figures as like shadow aspects of me, right? Because what reason do I have to dream about this person? Like they are not in my life. They're representative of some pretty deeply rooted stuff that I carry around with me. And so they become sort of a mask representing all of those pieces. And yeah, the way that you framed it here is that there's a real danger of like judgment, right? And so we all have parts that do that. We all have parts that have internalized that judgmental, shamey dynamic that we would never put on somebody else necessarily, right? But we do it to ourselves. And so she's here. She's here just reminding you that this is an inner element. Yeah. And I mean, you started this conversation by saying that you researched perfectionism and burnout as a big part of your career pivot, right? Like these are key themes for you about which you have hard-won wisdom to share because you've been through it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. It's powerful. It is.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's a walk in the park, but it's powerful. Okay. Other pieces of the dream. Boys were there.
Yeah,
Who are
the
these
boys were laughing at me. The boys always laughed at me.
Uh-huh. Now, so this is also reflective of a painful experience, right?
Yeah.
Like this is a sort of hologram image of something that did happen often.
Yeah. Honestly. And I was just like, such a nerdy, like, I just like, I don't know, like nerdy mixed girl in this Midwestern rich prep school. And, I'm the one with like, that was forced to like have the rolly backpack and like.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. But like was like part of the like the cool group, like, or on the periphery, and that almost was worse, like to almost make it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, because you cite this a lot in your work, like that sort of not quite fitting into any one group
Yeah.
feeling as another sort of core kind of psyche element that you've
Mhm.
carried, right?
Mhm.
And that makes sense to me that there's that just sort of like I'm right there, but I'm not. There's that like peripheral feeling.
Mhm.
Yeah. On that note, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Where'd you grow up? You said Midwest, but
Ann Arbor, Michigan.
yeah, okay. I know. Yeah, beautiful place. But yes, context is everything, right? And especially at that age, it's like everyone is just so hyper aware of any minor difference. It's like, what is this? What do we
Yeah,
do with
it was
this?
interesting because I was not consciously aware of my negative experience at my school or growing up really until pretty recently. I've been doing a lot of inner teen work and kind of just
Yeah.
exploring. I mean, a big part of my racial journey was having that, like, well, I would have more conversations with people, I guess. I don't really know how it all unfolded, but it became very apparent that my experience, I just it was more in erasure and assimilation,
Yes.
and kind of what that did to my psyche, in terms of, like, I was working so hard on self-love, and I realized, how could I love myself if I didn't even see my whole self, and that my family didn't see my whole self, and oh gosh, my friend group didn't see my whole self, and my teacher, all these things. And I'm like, all of a sudden I'm like, no wonder I felt so lonely, even though,
Mm.
I had a million quote friends. Or no wonder, you know this is tangentially related, but I struggled with an eating disorder, and, like,
Oh, yeah.
these, like, self-sabotaging things or mental illnesses that come from, I think, trying to, I don't know if it's fill a void or just trying to figure out who you are. You don't know, you've become untethered.
Yes. I'm very moved by what you're sharing right now, Elizabeth. Thank you so, so much for just being so open with us. It's really striking a chord with me right now, especially what you're saying about just like that erasure feeling and that feeling of being like cut off from a core part of yourself and like the distinct loneliness that that creates. It's like a very specific, I'll say three of swords, like brand of
Yeah.
pain, right? It really is. And so for you to frame it in your specific experience and context like that is just so helpful. And I think that that's the kind of thing that can ripple out for so many people coming from so many different backgrounds and experiences to recognize that like coming home to myself is my number one job. Everything else can find its way from there,
Yeah.
right? Yes. I just love hearing that you've gotten to start like finding your way there even in recent years. It sounds like that's I'm just so happy to hear that. It's amazing. Okay, more stuff about the dream. So tell me more about, you said that like obviously school has its, flavor for you, not only socially, but also in terms of just what you experienced at like the sort of like pressures of the
Mhm.
school environment, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, just curious if there's more that you want to share about like just the way that these figures are illustrating some of that which you may carry from that time in your life and that you're potentially sort of sorting and reworking through right now. Just an invitation if anything comes up. If not, it's okay too.
Yeah, something that just like I think about this idea of being a mess and being really scattered is something
Oh
I think
yeah.
about a lot.
Yeah, like those words matter, right? Like it's like that language is like
Yeah.
specific. Yeah.
And it's like, and sort of the frantic, like I forgot
Yeah.
everything feeling. So I was diagnosed with a learning disability when I was in sixth grade. I don't like reading.
Fair.
And it just was really hard for me. And, anyways, it's interesting because this is a bit of a tangent, but there's no like, it's not dyslexia, it's not ADHD. This has like a number, which is actually like harder sometimes because it's like people don't understand it and they're like, oh, so it's like this. And it's like, kind of not. But, anyways, neuro atypical. And
Exactly. Like under that umbrella, right?
yeah. And so I had extended time on tests, which was like a godsend for me, but I always carried a lot of shame. It was very awkward because it's like I did really well in school, and then everyone's like, "Oh, it's because like you have like get all this extra time." And
You're using air quotes, right? Like it's that kind of like, yeah,
yeah,
supposedly you have
yeah,
this
this
issue. Yeah.
thing,
Mhm.
but you're
Yeah.
probably just getting preferential treatment.
Uh-huh.
And but then they also like sequester you away. So it's really embarrassing. And it was a really big thing. And then I really internalized that. I mean, I wasn't a very good reader. Like it took glacial for me to get through like anything. And
Yeah.
I wasn't a particularly good writer. And that really propelled me. I was a quantitative economics and community health double major in
Yeah.
undergrad. I went into consulting. Like I never, ever would have considered myself an artist, creative, a writer. And even now I get self-conscious because it's like I do read a lot more now for fun. I try, but it still takes me forever. And it's like people will talk about like, oh, like as a writer, like I was a bookworm,
Sure.
like anyways, and I was creating these fantasies in my head, and that wasn't me at all. So, but I do find like the way that I work. I mean, the whole reason why I did the tarot deck, I think in part is because of how my brain works. Like I tried to do a linear story
There you
and
go.
it just didn't work for me. And I was like, but they can't exist at the same time. And there are all these layers to them, and I can't fit it in a single sentence or whatever.
Yeah.
But I do still carry a lot of shame around the way that my brain works. And I'm still trying to, I guess, embrace that part of me. So I wonder if that's sort of
Yes.
something that came up.
Yes, absolutely. The conversation that I end up having so often with clients because I am neurodivergent, ADHD, all kinds of stuff going on. And I work with a lot of clients who are neurodiverse. And
Mm.
so a lot of the conversations boil down to, is there a way to be kinder to myself around what my brain needs, right? Because most of us were not given the skills to learn how to do that earlier on in life.
Mhm.
Most of us were made to feel like something was wrong and it was our fault. And that's just a hotbed for shame, right?
Mhm.
So the reparenting, the inner teen
Yeah.
work of that is literally just offering kindness, accommodation, right? Like what does work for me?
Right.
And you found this beautiful pathway into storytelling that is multifaceted, multi-layered. It doesn't have to follow the sort of traditional linear framework. It can actually be so much more expansive. So, yes, Elizabeth, please tell us a little bit more about how this deck came to be, if you would, because I just think that this sort of mission and story behind it is just so lovely, and I want listeners to get to hear about
Mm.
that. So, anything you want to share and offering, tell us more.
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned at the time, my husband and I, we had left. I was in New York City for grad school.
Okay.
And we had left in 2020. The chapter closed a bit sooner than I thought. But it was time. And so we hit the road, and that ended up being a 2.5 year adventure.
Wow.
Moved every month for 2.5 years.
Wow.
All over the US, multiple islands in Hawaii, abroad once that opened up. And it started out just, for my mental health, quite honestly, being in New York during the pandemic, and then was going to just be like, where would be fun to like try out? Because that's when else will we have this opportunity? And then it turned into, I guess, since we have this flexibility, we might as well start like testing out different places we might want to live. And it was the first time that like we kind of had that choice where it wasn't like for school or for work or for some reason to just be like, let's just like experiment. And so that's kind of the space that I was in alongside deep, deep grief with the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes. For me, really awakened a lot of dormant trauma. And
Yes.
like for the first time, I took an Asian American women's writing class fall of 2020. And that was, I remember being so terrified if I even belonged in that group, because I'm only half also in quotes. And I don't speak Chinese. And I just didn't, at the time, I really did not understand, I guess, how identity is claimed, how you get to like, it felt like something other people decided that I had to like opt into, but I didn't get to say, actually, no, this is how I identify.
Yes. Yes. The inherent disempowerment of that.
Yeah. So I was like in this class, I learned for almost everyone in the room, it was their first time being in a room only with other Asian women. And
Wow.
yeah, it was really a powerful, like really pivotal experience for me. I brought that up mainly, I think, because it gave me language, like to name different things that I was experiencing or feeling.
Yeah.
So then I, started to have more conversations. And my husband is first generation, born in Hong Kong. And we really didn't talk about our race until then, to be honest, which seems so crazy. I mean, we've been together 15 years now.
Okay. Wow. But there was this opening.
Yeah. And so we are on the road. It's pretty much me and him. And so we're just having these conversations, and we're both wanting to find this part of ourselves together, which was just a really unexpected, like new growth in our relationship.
Yes.
And anyways, I think where I was going with this was just that these conversations and questions were on my mind. And so when I burned out on the manuscript I was working on, which was much more kind of an academic look at burnout and perfectionism, more like a descriptive self-help book, I realized that I wrote it for the white gaze. Like I wrote it without any, like, I remember I had a white editor who was like, you actually don't mention like once that you're Asian. And I remember at the time being like, why does that matter? And then I'm like, oh my gosh.
Wait a damn minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hold up.
Hold up.
Wow.
Like, it was like, I was like 3 seconds away from like, press things, submit. And then I was like, oh, like, I called my agent. I was actually in tears. It was very scary because I was like, I cannot move forward with this.
Wow.
It is not in integrity. I don't want to do it. And then she was like, okay, write a list of projects of your heart. Because it was such a hard time.
What a great directive.
Right? She's the best. And so then that's when I was like, you know what? I've had this seedling of an idea. And she and I had originally connected over tarot. So I knew she was like
Nice.
down. And I was like, what if I'd love to create a tarot deck where Asian women are at the center, where it's very modern and hip and accessible. And the imagery is like it's outdoorsy because, and like sort of this Americana, because I want it to be like a big F you where it's like, oh, you say we don't belong. Let me like show you that we don't just eat dumplings. We also eat PB&J. We don't just, like whatever. I wanted to be like, at first it was like, I felt so sad because I didn't feel like I had my Chineseness didn't look like other people's.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, I still get to be Chinese, even though I am like very Americanized at this point because I'm third gen. And so I was like, this is my way of saying like, we get to be whoever we want.
Yeah. I have chills. Like it can be so expansive and inclusive. And the imagery that you chose is just, I would say, the perfect sort of symbolic container for all of that. It really comes through. Like, especially just hearing you describe it that way, I can feel why it's so resonant, Elizabeth. It's really powerful. And it was a project of the heart, which of course, no wonder it strikes a chord because it's from that place, that authentic, beautiful place. And you had to do a hard pivot. And that is so brave. Like, I know that listeners will feel it too. I have so much respect for people who have had to have that moment of like, I'm about to press the button, but I can't do this. Never mind. This isn't who I am. I got to make a different choice. Like that is that is the hero's journey to me. Like it's literally that. It's being able to be on a path and be like, nope, I'm turning around, blow it all up. We're doing something else. It's incredible.
Thank you.
Good for you. Inspiring.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful deck. It is clearly made with so much love. You were able to collaborate with another Asian illustrator on the project, right? More of the just beautiful belonging. And the illustrations are so fun. I'll tell you my favorite card in the deck, I think. Let me see, because you have your different names for the court cards, which I thought were so fun because we don't need the like old-timey gendered like language. So this one was, let me see, she was the backpacker of pentacles.
My favorite too.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I was like, I almost like jumped in. I was like, let her finish her sentence.
You're like, I know what you're going to say.
I know what you're going to say.
She's just so fabulous. And so the backpacker is like the knight, right? Like the sort of teenager, like we were saying. And she's resonant because she's got that just like fiery spirit, right? She's like very witchy and very badass looking. And I loved what you wrote about the card, that it's all about just like rejecting the overachiever archetype that so many of us find ourselves playing into. And she's just like housing some pizza. So yes, we love her. And I love that you knew that was what I was going to say. She's just too cool.
I know. Honestly, it was so funny. I mean, I'm sure you can relate as a fellow writer. It's like these characters become like your friends,
yes,
or your enemies. But either way, they become human. And like I am like, she's cooler than me. This like, she's like who I want to be.
She is who I want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I aspire to be more like her. Oh. So great. There were a couple of just, statements that you had made about the deck and just where it came from. But the word that kept standing out to me that you've used over and over is like belonging, and just like creating this idea of belonging. And so I feel like that so comes through, but I don't know if you want to talk to like these specific people, groups, marginalized folks who you want to feel that belonging from the deck. Another invitation, if that feels resonant right now.
I always said like it wasn't an Asian deck for tarot people, it's a tarot deck for Asian people. I really
Absolutely.
wanted us to have like to pull a card and see themselves in it. And I I'll say like it's for Asian American women, it's for mixed race kids,
Yeah.
it's for third culture kids in the imagery and in the guidebook message. Like I really wanted to create space for that. But it was very
Mhm.
scary though, because first of all, I mean, I got a lot of feedback that centering Asian American women was not like a good business decision. Like it was too
Really?
niche. Yeah. And
Wow.
why would other non-Asian people even consider
Wow.
it? And I was like, wait a minute, like we all use like the old school deck full of like old white men. Like
Bingo.
why it's symbolism, it's imagery. Also, like we all watch different kinds of TV. Like that's what representation is. But
Yes.
I
Wow.
find in the spiritual space, especially, it really, there's a real disconnect. So there's that piece of it. And then I was very afraid in some of the guidebook messages. I was, like I have mentioned, I was so used to centering the white experience that like I had to, like when I really took a leap of faith to like when I sat down and sort of thought about the card and thought about my own experiences of what the card was evoking, I would kind of channel that into what I wanted to say about it and what I wanted to help people
Sure.
with when they drew it. And so I wrote it to that like Asian woman, and knowing that it could be, I don't know if it's off-putting or unrelatable to
Mm.
many people who would pick up the deck. And I have been like so delighted that like literally like I am so bad and I read every Amazon review. Um, but what can you say?
Can't help it.
You
I
can't.
know.
It's like I just
I know.
whatever. I've accepted my my issue here. But I'm like, out of all the things, literally no one, I don't know if they're like worried about being racist or what, but like that's one of the things no one has talked
There you
about.
go.
And so I'm like, turns out it's actually fine to like speak from one's own experience that people will take. I was just so used to code switching and chameleoning
Yes.
myself and sort of
Yes.
diluting. Like I think especially like online, you do try to appeal to the majority of people, and in doing so, you sort of censor yourself and this and that because you don't.
Yes. Just unconsciously. It's just, yeah,
Yeah.
habit.
Yeah. And so to kind of make some of the cards, I'm thinking specifically like the Chariot card was like
Mm.
specifically about the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes and sort of like how there's this like buzzing, because it's about sort of this buzzing energy,
Yeah.
this urgency. And for me, I'm like, I feel this urgency to like, that like now is the one and only time for me to like speak up as an Asian person, but like I really
Yeah.
want to take a nap. And I was like so nervous that that was too specific or whatever. And it turns out that
Yeah.
these, as most things go, you know, the more authentic you are, the more relatable you become to people who really need to hear that for their own experiences, because they are also experiencing that, or they're experiencing something similar and people are smart enough and like, you know, you have to really trust and believe in your reader that they will take what they need from it. And
Oh,
that's what art is.
absolutely. Absolutely. There's this just trust, like this trusting reciprocal relationship that
Yeah.
you're cultivating, right? But it is a leap of faith. And it's really important to speak to the reality of that
Mm.
and how terrifying it can be for
Mm.
many reasons, many of which this white person sitting here across from you will not be able to understand in the same way. And yet, Your work is so powerful and so resonant for me based on some of my own experiences and people that I love. And right, like there are so many layers of relatability. So it's just so helpful to remember that, like that ripple effect is so strong. And I love that you didn't let anyone say, like, I mean, you had to overcome this, but you didn't let anyone tell you, like, no, it's too niche.
Mm.
Like, you doubled down. Like, that's even more why we need it. Like,
Yeah.
no. Oh, it just makes me so happy. Again, it's like so inspiring and exciting to me. So bravo. We love this deck. This is going in the like regular rotation for sure, because it's one of those that it's just keeps unfolding. You keep wanting to reach for it. Our hour just literally like melted away. I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, well, I don't know how that happened, but sure. Anything else you want to share, tell us about, anything else that you're excited about right now?
I think one thing is that I just have been reflecting on that's been kind of fun is, I don't know, people kind of ask me what I hope people will get out of the deck. So I've thought a lot about it. Yeah, the experience that I want people to have. And anyways, I was like, I think it actually is my manuscript just chopped up in a different form. Like before, I really tried to position myself as like an expert, like a perfectionism expert, trying to bestow this like research and knowledge so that you could do something with it. So the antidote to perfectionism, the research says, is self-compassion. So instead of saying to cultivate self-compassion, I created something that helped people to practice it.
Right.
And I think that's cool.
That's incredible. That is so beautiful, Elizabeth. Like, what a testament to your own work and healing as well, right? Like, I don't have to, it goes back to your dream too. I don't have to be together and presentable and the expert. I can be raw and messy and human and make an impact. Like,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
right?
that was a bit. Yeah, I love that you said that because I do think part of this has been just like embracing that I like fun things. Like I like part of what I feel like my purpose is to help people, think deeper and heal and all those things. But I think it's to like have more fun, to like play.
Yes.
Yeah, that just kind of leads me to like the seedling of my next project is in the works. And I'll say that because the backpacker specifically was my favorite card to write. And because I'm doing all this, like, I just wanted to live in her world more. I wanted her to like share more lessons. And because for me, that teenager is about self-expression. It's about boundaries. It's about experimenting and finding who you are. And so anyways, if this was for little E, the next one is for teen E.
Oh, fabulous.
So stay tuned.
We will, Elizabeth, we will be on the edge of our seats, excited to see whatever it is that you bring next, because it's going to be powerful. It's going to be resonant and it's going to be fucking fun. Like, oh my God, please, can we just let some things be fun and enjoyable and playful? My God, we all need that so badly. Like, please. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so, so much. I'm so glad that our paths crossed.
Me too.
I'm so grateful for this connection and this conversation. It has brought me like so much light and delight. So thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing with us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Jordan, for having me. It was such a life-giving conversation that I'm holding dear to my heart too.
Good. Me too. I know. I'm just like beaming. Like my face hurts from like, smiling.
I feel flushed.
I'm like massaging my cheeks because they're like hurting. Okay. So
last thing, please tell listeners where they can find you, follow you, stay tuned for your next projects, etc.
Yes. Okay. Instagram and TikTok are at Hey, Hey, Elizabeth Sue. And then you can sign up for my newsletter, Monday Vibes, on my website. And I also have a fun little free quiz there to find out your tarot card of the day.
Cute.
Right? I'm like more 17 mag in my branding. Please.
Oh my God. Yeah. I missed that. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So that's on my website, elizabethsue.com. And I hope to hear from you. And then I guess with the deck, I'm like, oh yeah, the deck.
that.
There are links on my website, and then it's also on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Bookshop. That's where you can support your favorite local bookstore.
Love Bookshop.
Yeah.
Beautiful. We will link to all of those places and make sure they are readily accessible and available. But thank you again, Elizabeth. This has just been such a delight. I just so appreciate you. And I'm just wishing you the best on your next adventures.
Thank you.
Mwah!
That's a wrap for this episode. Special thanks again to my guest, Elizabeth Sue. May your magical deck continue to find its way into the hands and hearts that need its messages most. We'll see you back here next month with another amazing guest. If you want more Psyche Magic, be sure to check out the Psyche Magic Salon on Substack. There you'll find all full and bonus episode archives for the podcast, as well as my weekly written newsletter with magical musings and recommendations for sources of creative inspiration. You'll also find the recorded version of our salon ritual to invoke creative flow. That's psychemagic.substack.com. If you haven't already, please take a moment now to subscribe, rate, and review us on your podcast app of choice. It really makes a difference and helps other people find the show. We hope you'll also follow along with our shenanigans on Instagram and TikTok at Psyche Magic Podcast. Psyche Magic was produced and recorded by me, Jordan Hale. Editing for this episode is by Masuzu Inaga. Our theme music is by Young Summer. Artwork is by Annika Murphy. Special thanks go to Daniel Higbee, Grace Fuse, and Michael McMillan. Thank you so much for listening. I'll leave you with a question. If you must sleep through a third of your life, are you willing to sleep through your dreams too? Get your dream journals out, y'all. Until next time.